So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. They led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes gathered together. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside of the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door, and brought Peter in. Now the servants and officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold. After they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard, Peter sat down with the officers to see the outcome, warming himself at the fire. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." Now the chief priests and the whole council kept trying to obtain false testimony against Jesus, so that they might put him to death. They did not find any, even though many false witnesses came forward. For many were giving false testimony against him, but their testimony was not consistent. But later on, two came forward and said, "This man stated, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and to rebuild it in 3 days.' We heard him say, 'I will destroy the temple made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without hands.' Not even in this respect was their testimony consistent." The high priest stood up and said to him, "Do you not answer? What is it that these men are testifying against you?" But Jesus kept silent and did not answer. And the high priest said to him, "I adjure you by the living God that you tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God, the Son of the Blessed One." Jesus said to him, "I am. If I tell you, you will not believe. You have said it yourself. Nevertheless, I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes and said, "He has blasphemed! What further need do we have of witnesses? What further need do we have of testimony? Behold, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? For we have heard it ourselves from his own mouth." They answered, "He deserves death." And they all condemned him to be deserving of death. Some began to spit at him, and to blindfold him, and to beat him with their fists, and to say to him, "Prophesy." And others slapped him, and said, "Prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is the one who hit you?" And they were saying many other things against him, blaspheming. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard below, and one of the servant girls of the high priest, the servant girl at the door, came to him, seeing him as he sat in the firelight, and looking intently at him, said, "You too are with Jesus the Galilean, the Nazarene. You also are not one of this man's disciples, are you?" This man was with him too, but he denied it before them all, saying, "I am not. Woman, I do not know him. I neither know nor understand what you are talking about." When he had gone out onto the porch, to the gateway, another servant girl saw him, and said to those who were there, to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth. This is one of them. You are one of them too. You also are not one of his disciples, are you?" And again he denied it with an oath, "Man, I am not. I do not know the man." A little later, after about an hour had passed, the bystanders came up, and another man, one of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, began to insist to Peter, "Surely you too are one of them. Certainly this man also was with him. Did I not see you in the garden with him? For even the way you talk gives you away, for you are a Galilean too." Then Peter again denied it. He began to curse and swear, "I do not know the man. I do not know this man you are talking about. Man, I do not know what you are talking about." And immediately, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed a second time. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, which Jesus had said, "Before a rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times." Jesus had made the remark to him, "Before a rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he began to weep. He went out and wept bitterly.